I'm Kate, Prophet with the Planets, financial astrologer. I've introduced myself a few times, so I won't do it too much here, but I'm going to just make a really tiny Bitcoin video. I'm going to make, this is going to be an introduction. There is a longer range, it goes for about probably a good hour, about some of the really big transits that are going to go on for Bitcoin on a really big level. Even looking at things like the Elon Musk takeover, a lot of the astrology coming up, some of the really big stuff, and some of these big outer transits. It's going to be a really condensed version. If you're interested in this and you like my style or think it's interesting, I do it from an educational level. I do not provide financial advice. I don't tend, look, I sort of cross that line a little bit of what I think is going to happen. I show what the astrology shows. If the astrology can't show us anything clearly based on the sort of way I do it using IPOs, I'm going to talk a bit of some other stuff as well. Just really quickly here in the other video, I have a really pretty well-rounded degrees, eclipses, transits, Monday, it's going to sort of have the whole shebang. A lot of degree work actually in the other one, bringing in things like Tether and Elon Musk and Kwon, all these people that are attached to this Bitcoin story, Microstrategy, Saylor. This is not this stuff, but you really do need to look at all that to do a proper astrology forecast using the chart method, not the sort of just, specific financial planet stuff. But what I just want to talk about some stuff really shorter term, and everyone's a bit of a kind of not in the greatest place with it. So I'm just going to do a really quick sort of little thing based on the way I do stuff. What I'm going to say, and I don't want to repeat too much because I'm trying to make it as condensed as possible. Look, this chart, I have said before, I think it's kind of finished on an astrology level. I don't think it's worth doing any analysis on except for some of the big negative transits. To be honest, there's really not a whole lot of good natal to IPO transits left, and that is because I'll just quickly explain this. When we've got a big chunk of planets here, mostly just planets, it's called a stellium. A stellium is 3 more planets in one house, but this is still called a stellium because we've got this huge chunk. All the energy is in this part of the chart, so I really like this chart because it just has so much synergy to the story. Well, it's been transited. Jupiter, the planet that's responsible for high prices, it's done the job. It started here back in 2019, and an eclipse also kicked off a lot of this as well. So a Jupiter conjunction and a giant eclipse, and the eclipse was conjunct Jupiter, whoosh, off we go. Early Uranus in Taurus. Now, this is, I guess you'd call the master transit. Uranus came into Taurus, it sort of came in earlier than it's stationed, and that's mid-2019, March 2019. I think this is important because I'm going to sort of talk about one thing to do with this just quickly, and I'll send you somewhere else. So if we go March 2019, probably look, it certainly wasn't say it wasn't going up before, but 2019 is when we really saw this move from this sort of point all the way to this sort of near 60,000. So this big power move, it's a combination of this sort of Uranus and Taurus. Where is it here? Look at this candle as it's come in, and the eclipse, there's an eclipse at 4 degrees Capricorn came in here, and this sort of pullback. It was a combination of Jupiter conjunct Pluto. I won't go into much in this Pluto eclipse, that can be a lot. And then we saw this resumption, so that's a really strong, I might even just quickly show you the eclipse to show you where here Uranus was. It was still early stage, and so we had Jupiter conjunct Pluto, one of my primary trading transits, which was the one we just saw the last high on. This is a little bit different because we're bringing a solar eclipse conjunct Pluto with this attached, and this Uranus coming in Taurus. Like, this would probably be number 1, and this would be 2 in this sort of really important order of importance. I'll talk about that at the end. So here we go. Now, what's happened? If I come here, Jupiter has finished making a conjunction, or always call it, or talking to the planets. Finished. I did say before, it's got nowhere else to go. The last high was what, using this sort of IPO method of astrology, that was the thing to wait for, and it's done, and it's kind of fallen apart since then. I did say be really, really careful because, things usually fall apart, particularly when Jupiter's got nothing to do. So all this momentum, it's finished, you know. And if anything, now you're starting to get squares and oppositions. So that's not good. Jupiter squares are not good, by the way. I did read Jupiter squares are good. I'm like, oh my God. No, very rarely, maybe the occasional, but that's negative. Opposition squares negative. So, no. So this is a little, I think this is finished. I don't think there's a lot you can do. Where we're at right now is that we are coming to Jupiter square Pluto. Now, I have made a whole video about Jupiter and Pluto. So this was, you know, even one guy was talking to on social media, is like, I see this coming, I use GAN, I see this, I'm out for this. You know, we use a preparation time, and he missed this whole drop just preparing for this Jupiter square Pluto. We've got the, look, this is going to come in exact around this sort of 15th of May, right when the, actually the exact date is the 18th of May with the eclipse on the 16th. That's pretty big, and my last video talked about what I thought about that eclipse. I'm going to really want to cover that actually specifically for this. So, you know, as Jupiter's moving into Aries, now I did mention, like, our statistical, based on the research of, you know, all these other financial astrologers, the last time Jupiter went to Aries was also after the dot-com bubble. No coincidences there. Same thing. It was the Jupiter-Neptune conjunction as well. You couldn't even make this up. And then this Jupiter into Aries was this kind of reality check astrology. So it's not to say that Jupiter in Aries is not going to be positive, because Jupiter in Pisces has been quite negative, as people say. But there's also been a lot of other, it's actually not Jupiter. I know a lot of people saying Jupiter in Pisces of some of it. I want to show you something later, because I think there's something else. And but Jupiter in Pisces has been really traditionally negative on the markets. But we're coming to this new Aries energy. So whilst it might be a bit of a bump, it has a lot to do historically. Note Uranus was an Aries conjunct Jupiter. It's quite a different bit of astrology, so we can't model the whole thing, but it's the reality check. The Pisces washes energy over. I would even expect something to do with financial astrology to change a little. I know it sounds weird, but I feel like there's going to be a change and a shift in the dynamic. But that is a lot. The Jupiter in Aries has to do with the investor dynamic. They're not going to buy the GMEs, AMCs. Look, they might. There's one. We've got one more Pisces, but I think that the market has shown its hand on that. So combining that with Jupiter into Aries, it's time to buy the real oomph, you know. So that's just something to, whilst we sort of are looking for this sort of, or many people, not we, not me, are looking for this positive Jupiter Aries, I don't think you could, you know, bet your bottom dollar. I think you'll certainly see a lift from the markets a little bit, but we've got a lot of astrology coming in, and there's some things to really pay attention to as far as Bitcoin. Now, when this eclipse is coming, a little bit going on. So you're going to have this Jupiter square Pluto, okay? Watch what it does. It won't come in exact again. This will probably be the man translation of that. We know Jupiter Pluto is just not amazing. We saw the Jupiter Pluto start, so we have a little bit of confluence on here, an eclipse to Pluto. So we know this Pluto placement, it works pretty well, okay? So, okay, we'll see what happens. And if, look, I'm trying to make this as well, look, because I know this, I'm a trader, you know, I'm just going to put my light on here. If we're in it, we're in it. What are we going to do? So I'm going to show you a period of time where I think, okay, this probably looks like a bit of a game plan time without giving sort of this specific financial advice. But I want to talk about the eclipse coming up. My forecast video, you've seen that I said, didn't think it'd be good, but there's something really important. Now that video did come with PDF to say we need to really watch December and be careful, because it's very possible this eclipse activates earlier, and it absolutely did. Okay, we had an eclipse in December. I've always got a little eclipse list I'm working with, and this is what starts to happen. We get all this crazy confluence of time. 12 Sagittarius, December 4, 2021. We had an eclipse. I'm actually just going to mark that a little bit. So we had this eclipse here, December 4, here. So let me just mark this in black, because I really want to separate it with what it is here, okay? So whilst you can think, oh, the eclipse smashed Bitcoin, I actually think it was the one now, because we have a way of working with planets and degrees that actually activate eclipses early. And I have marked out two really important things to be looking at, because I think it's important to understand how they work, but part of it is we may not see too much here because I believe a lot of the damage has been done. So I've got quite a few blue lines. You can see these dotted lines here. The actual eclipse is the solid lines, and the dotted lines are when our activating planets can set them off. So and they're clear dates. They're based on this sort of mathematical degree, so we don't even need any room for interpretation. It's the day that the planet crosses to activate it. What happened for the eclipse here, our activating planet actually came in early, around 15th of November. So whilst you might go, oh, the solar eclipse, yeah, Jupiter and Pisces, maybe as well, it's also this eclipse came in a little bit early in November. You've got a triple, so when you've got three things that are a little intense, you're probably going to see the move. But a lunar eclipse goes through about 12 weeks to 3 months. I would say, even when it comes to price and my experience, just specifically financial astrology, I have written a book about trading with eclipses because there was so little information. I've actually studied them for over 10 years of how they affect prices on markets specifically. So, you know, I think I've got a little bit of armor with this stuff, and we've really got to understand when they can come in. And the why I say this, because you've got to just not go, oh, the eclipse, and point it out on okay, here it is coming again, we're going to get the same thing. No, it doesn't work like that. Also, eclipses can last up to 6 months, and a solar can even go for a year. It depends. If the sun's involved, it's going to go for ages. But it's not just a matter of, okay, this weekend there's an eclipse, we're going to see all this stuff. We certainly might around this eclipse. It is squaring Saturn, and it's hitting all these assets, and I showed you on that Bitcoin chart. So I'm not, you know, we will certainly possibly see something here. Don't bet your bottom dollar on it though. But we would likely to see something. We've still got the effects of that really intense solar eclipse coming between Saturn and Pluto, which we know smashes markets. But it's important to point out the activating planet came November 21. So what, you know, and this makes sense. Look at the drop. It actually started to the day. It's not the solar, okay, the solar eclipse rattled markets, but look at the cleanliness of the time. Okay, we look 6 weeks to 3 months, and this is a weekly chart. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Exactos to the bottom. That's our 3 months of work. We may not see too much here, so be careful of buying the story a little bit, and particularly social media is talking about eclipses. Professional financial astrology, we've got to use really different methods. So look, whilst we might see a rattle, it's possible we've seen most of it, but there's a second eclipse story like this, and it becomes a little bit more important. Now, most people in Bitcoin will probably not be able to forget what happened last year. We looked at a 50% price decrease, okay? I know Jupiter, you know, again, once we add in more than 1 or 2 things, we probably get a better chance of the move. We actually don't really want to make an analysis on one transit. Sometimes you'll see stuff, and an eclipse is certainly the most, solar eclipse is the most powerful, lunar eclipses and stuff like that. But if we've got a couple of things going on, you know, that's trying to get intense. So back in June 2021, and I know people are kind of bringing this drop to Jupiter and Pisces, I don't think that's actually all of it. And I know, look, Jupiter and Pisces is bad, but I don't think this narrative of that's what it is, that's what it is, that's what it is all of it. I've got to be really honest. We had an eclipse. I have done this before, so I'm not going to spend too much time on it. But, you know, what happened is that the eclipse at 19 Gemini came in. It was the 10th of June, and it squared Saturn, Pluto, and it absolutely crushed it. Well, so that was 10th of June 2021. And this is just sort of it's a weekly chart here. But our activating planet, again, actually happened to show early on this one. And it actually came here in April. And right when Elon Musk was starting to talk about all that stuff, like, you know, it's terrible, I'm selling it, I'm divorcing it or something, I reread it the other day, China, whatever, smashed this eclipse. Look, having, you know, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So really, again, 3 months, you know. So, and what's important is our activating planet is actually, now this was last year, is back at the degree later this year, okay? So it's possible that, you know, we sort of say, I think it's Susan Miller that said all eclipses have a second act. it's possible that that eclipse from last year has Act 2 and 3 and 4. We don't know. It might not be all of them. It could be one. But you absolutely have to be aware that there's a possibility that any of that kind of news, it's really interesting, this Elon Musk thing. You've got to watch out for China a little bit, but you know, it's a matter of being prepared and being, you know, this is what we use financial astrology for, just so we aren't caught off guard. So being open to the fact that we know it could have a second act, sorry, Act 2, Act 3, Act 4, we've got to watch these dates. Now I've marked them because I think it's easier if you can see it. So our window here is 26th of September, 28th of November, and then there's one in Feb 2023. I don't like March 2023 at all for the markets. There's a nasty eclipse square Pluto. My list of chances that long. I'll be doing an early forecast video about that. Hate it generally for markets. I think it's probably a bit as messy as it is here, but anyway, I've got to get into that a little bit more. But looking at the Twitter, like, this is not trading, so this is, I could go for hours about this. It's such a thing, but the Twitter takeover is going to take 6 months. We're here April, May, June, July, August, September, October. Right in between this sort of period of time where this eclipse could activate it. Right, look, it's not trading. Right when Elon Musk was like, hate Bitcoin, it's terrible. This is not trade. I do think you might see a story connected. Look, as I said, I do think you might see it on social media. I don't know. Obviously, crypto payments are a bit of a no-brainer. I feel like he will be quite poignant to the story. My long video goes right into that. But we need to watch this window. What if Twitter doesn't happen here? I mean, that's when you got to look at it. But, you know, this is true. This act, this second, third, fourth act is potentially coming. Now, it's also coming around to other eclipses, okay? Let me get now, because I know if people lose attention, they turn off and like, I want to know what's going on with Bitcoin. So, there's two things I'm going to talk about, or three things really quickly. Mercury retrograde, amazing, easy. If you use this calendar, let me just quickly get, I should have had that prepared. I'm going to make sure here. So this is, honestly, if you want to start in financial astrology, this is where to go. Forget all the, you know, stuff that you see. Just use this. It's really good. It will save your skin. I don't trade during Mercury retrograde. It's kept me out of the last 3 crashes now. 3. Pretty good stats being that, you know, so it will save your skin. And Bitcoin, we know, hates the shadow. It just goes crazy. We're in there now. The shadow started so we have a little thing up here. It will show you how to use a legend. The beginning bit before it says Mercury retrograde station before the red, that's when Bitcoin acts up, and it tends to not hate in between. But so we started here April 26, okay? So if we quickly look, because I really want to, there's hundreds of posts, I don't need to show you too much more. We've had this doji candle, or even not this candle, these last 2. So I don't think you can say it's clearly all the shadow, but you know, it's certainly what, about 6 years running I've clocked this for. So we know it doesn't like it, so we can start to work with a plan there, okay? Our shadow is going to finish anywhere up to the, actually, and including the 10th. So the 10th is a bit of a crazy day. That's right before that solar eclipse. So, you know, no, we don't trade around eclipses at all, unless you're an amazing volatility trader, which you know, it's a no-go. So, and then we come into this sort of really strong part. Now, Bitcoin has often, you know, done okay in the middle. The post shadow, it has really gone a bit AWOL on the other side, and that would be around this sort of 3rd of June. So just the second shadow has been a lot worse in other times, and it would probably also depend on the other transits going on. So this second half of June, sort of this 3rd to 18, you put it as a bit of a cautionary period. You absolutely would not be able to kind of pull out a lot of this sort of transit stuff. Now, our eclipses May can show up a month later, even without activating planets. It just what happens, you know. So you've got, and also it can go for a couple of weeks, so that would kind of blend in a little bit here. So I do think you kind of, if you get that change in trend in the middle and back it comes again, and I guess we'd probably be looking, I haven't really done a lot of, I sort of did so much work for this year, and I feel it's all just letting it settle a little bit, you know. So we're coming into this late June. Not not too crazy, you know, so things will hopefully just sort of live. Now there's some really amazing astrology in May. I did mention that in another video, so I'm not going to clock this too much. Jupiter, Pluto, Sun. I think the Fed will come in and step up probably if things are still going crazy. Look, I don't know, but it's in the past the Fed have come in and saved this eclipse between Pluto, Saturn, and here's some astrology where that could happen again. Don't know. We're looking at this sort of 1 degree, 29 degrees, 28 degrees, Sun 1, Jupiter 2. Look, it's possible on the Bitcoin chart that look, I think it would just, it's following the markets anyway. You do have Pluto at 1 here and Jupiter at 0. Look, I could also pick that up just from that astrology coming out there. Just be aware, you know, it's not to rules to say that it won't happen on this side here, but you may just see a change again. You know, I'm just sort of pointing out some of the astrology that's coming. But also I want to talk about some other stuff as well. If you're trying to create a game plan, as most people know, I don't do financial advice, but I want to help as much as I can here, see if I can sort of show you anything, or we can make it, you know, if you need a bit of a plan. It's not to say, but it's just being more aware. It's an astrology forecast and looking at some astrology of some sort of the danger of things a little bit, because as I said, we are coming into this sort of second, third, fourth act of this eclipse that absolutely smashed Bitcoin. You know, again, has it done the damage or will it come back? We don't know. Could even China could come back out, because eclipses bring themes and stories and stuff. I don't know what's going on there, you know. This is not taking technical analysis into advice. Then you would sort of add, I think this is more about sentiment than and there'll be some really big tea. I think there's a little head and shoulders on the weekly too at the moment. So with the eclipse, that's a bit like, well, you know, something would need to kind of come out, and you know, I think that astrology in May would be hopefully what might do it, you know, because that head and shoulders is probably not ideal either. However, so knowing that we've sort of got this intense thing here, and we've got some eclipses coming up in here as well, one that is probably quite concerning to me is going to be this one at Lunar at 16 Taurus. It's conjunct Uranus again, just like the eclipses conjunct Uranus here. We know Uranus rules crypto. It's in Taurus, it's in a money sign. There are quite a few charts that are getting, and a few people that have got some intense astrology. Kwon would be one, but you know, that's all covered in my longer video. I don't have time to do all that. This eclipse is a little hairy. You know, Saturn square the Sun, Saturn square Venus. Venus rules currencies. Bitcoin's a currency. Uranus opposite the Sun. Now, go to MMA cycles, the weekly. They've really talked about how important this Uranus conjunct Sun transit is here in the markets. I'm recording this 7th of May 2022, and it's pulled the markets down. Well, that means that at this eclipse, there's another translation of that Uranus-Sun opposite. Conjunctions, obviously, that's quite volatile. An opposition and a conjunction work similarly but different, because if the conjunction goes volatile, it's another sort of version of that signature. Okay, it's the opposite Mercury. It's opposite Venus before, you know, and it's been square Saturn here in November. The actual Saturn square is coming in around another eclipse, but this was the tech rack where Tesla, Kathy Wood. We've got one more of these to go in November. You know, so that's a little bit hairy. Now there's also an eclipse in October. I think that one's mixed on Bitcoin. I can't read it either way. It's 2 degrees Scorpio. Venus is conjunct that eclipse, so again, there could be a currency theme about it. There are a lot of things to do with Bitcoin in my longer video, 0, 1 to 0, whichever you use 1, 2 degrees. It will pick this degree up, and it could be different. You know, it's almost, it's a bit weird how much stuff is connected to Bitcoin with 0, 1, 2 degrees in the charts. For Bitcoin itself, this eclipse itself hasn't got anything. Well, the Saturn Uranus squares around it, and if this comes early, that's going to get really messy too. Bitcoin is a mixed one. I can't quite work it out. I lean to good and bad, and if you watch my Jupiter, Pluto and Sun, now the eclipse is the Sun and the Moon, so the eclipse is involved in the Sun and in the biggest way possible. We do connect Jupiter, Pluto and the Sun. So I don't know. I would almost say if in doubt, leave it out. Be careful to not listen to too much crazy. Oh, it's terrible, terrible, terrible. Expect the worst. Because I don't know. You got a double Jupiter, 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 Pluto. It's a square though. So here's that Jupiter, Pluto square passed. But the eclipse will sextile Jupiter square. Sorry, square Jupiter sextile Pluto. We've got the Sun. And it is a Jupiter, Pluto, Sun aspect, which is a really big one in financial astrology. And that's coming into this Twitter thing. So this is a hard one to read. And again, it's going to pick up all these charts. Even here, Jupiter at 0 degrees. Jupiter's back in Aries, 0 degrees. This is the chart I use. 1 degree. So this is all just kind of like, can't read this one to save myself, except for more the people on this longer. So there's a little bit of a wild card aspect to do with what's happening in Q3. I think the Twitter of a takeover has a lot to do with it. And I have mentioned before the Pluto conjunct Jupiter transit. I've mentioned social media. This will show its I do believe this is it. Because Pluto rules the billionaires, the millionaires, the Saudi prince, the guy that just made $1 billion for a Twitter, the money, you know, but it's also power. These people are very powerful. The Jupiter, Pluto, the power's coming over the luck of Bitcoin. You know, could it regenerate? Yes, I'm not making this video about this, but there could be a story here. This story goes for years. I really do think that takeover is really poignant. I would almost say you can't do a great analysis of Bitcoin with astrology until we know which way it's going. I think the more important astrology view is it going to happen. You know, I think Elon Musk got to get through his Jupiter opposite Pluto, Jupiter opposite Uranus. He has some really interesting Jupiter Pluto Sun astrology himself, you know. This eclipse that's here, you know, I've mentioned this before. He did pick up this eclipse. I missed this at first, and I did have one. I actually had a wrong date. I had to change it. But Jupiter, Pluto, Sun, conjunct Jupiter, sextile Pluto. It's actually really positive. Pluto, sextile Jupiter, Pluto, trine Pluto. All this Jupiter, Pluto. That's why he's come into the limelight. Now, the fact that it's being sued and it's not really sure, and he's like, if it happens, that's the Jupiter opposite Pluto, Jupiter opposite. That's his negative astrology coming in, not giving it a clear path, and he did it in the shadow of the eclipse. But anyway, let's see what happens in 6 months. Can his Pluto, Jupiter pull this off and that eclipse? That's come as well, Jupiter, Pluto. Now, these eclipses go for 6 months. Here we go again, you know. And you know, I'd even go back, I don't know what was going on with December with this Twitter stuff. I think actually maybe he came and when this eclipse activated and said he might have put, I might buy it even. That's when I think that anyway. So there's a little bit of a wild card. Don't lean too bearish, but it's complicated. And then you've got the possibility of that eclipse showing up 1 month early. And if that is October 5, that could come anywhere from September 5, okay? So if we got into, you know, because that's just how it works. So if you come into this September, your Uranus-Saturn square is coming here as well. And Uranus semi-square Jupiter is here too. So that could get a little messy. And, you know, this could also shake up a lot of stuff. Solar eclipse in Scorpio. If anyone's done anything bad in finance, this probably coming out of the woodwork here. So you might just want to stake. I'm certainly not saying to buy it, but I feel like there's this really weird wild card element. But you've got to be prepped from September for this. And then if we take that chart, we know even September, October, November is messy. So what's going on in between? You know, bottom line, you know, not financial advice, you're in Bitcoin, what can you do? Well, there's some interesting astrology in August. What's going to also happen in August, looking at our Mercury retrograde calendar, a bit of breathing. So it's coming back though, 20th of August, you're going to get another shadow. You know, there's not a lot of break. I've got to be really, so, you know, sometimes no astrology is better than bad astrology. So what goes on between June to August might be quite crucial here, you know. Certainly see what it's doing there, make a plan. And why I also say that is because what's going to happen, Uranus is going to sextile Uranus. Now, we would never make a big forecast based on one sextile. It's just not. Uranus is kind of quite an important planet. It also rules crypto though. It's going to come in right under half a degree. So the planet ruling crypto is hitting this point on the chart that we know Jupiter conjunct Uranus. It made a big high, and the eclipse squared Uranus. It made a big low. So we know that planets are always important. Now the Uranus station is one of the most important transits. So here comes another one of those kind of double confluence things. I do have a little, like, just something to watch, but I'll get this first. So it's also going to trine the sun, and the sun, look, it hasn't been that great before, but you know, we've got this might be quite a different version of it, and that's coming in around the 25th of August, and sometimes we do see things before, and you've got Mercury retrograde coming on the 2nd. Sometimes you need to get there. Just watch what goes on around there. The rest of the astrology, there's nothing too crazy happening. You know, little Jupiter semi-square Neptune, but I think for the sake of it, we can write it. It also depends what is going on with this Jupiter in Aries as well, okay? I don't know if this time is right. If this were a normal chart, it'd be, oh, Jupiter conjunct the midheaven. That's quite a high point in the business cycle. I don't know with Bitcoin if I can really marry that. You're going to have I don't think this Mercury, I wouldn't do a trade with just Mercury. I think it's a bit weak because I don't think it's worth it. But Saturn 21 degrees, Saturn 21 degrees. It's not necessarily aspecting. So it might be okay because sometimes things can pick up degrees without it. But there's something that needs to be kind of mentioned here is this Uranus. So I started with this Uranus and Taurus. It's like taking an escalator up, and then at the it gets to the summit, the halfway point, and then it will start to come down. MMA Cycles will give you the exact degree. Raven Merriam did an amazing video. I don't think many people even really watched it. I put it out there for people to watch. Kind of said get out before the eclipses. He's got a really great, I mean, it's invaluable. Please, I would really suggest to watch that stuff rather than the 30-second stuff, which because he's done it for 30, 40 years. But anyway, different method, but it's the degrees there you need to watch, and it's not that far away. And the escalator is going to start coming down. So if Uranus and Taurus is crypto, you've got to be a little bit aware that Uranus is coming into that halfway point, okay? It's probably, if that's probably one of the main transits, this sextile here might be quite important because you're coming into the down escalator. So if I don't know as much with, you know, I can say Jupiter conjunct Uranus back here in March. Yes, we'll probably make a high. I could just hopefully maybe guess, because Uranus stations are really important. It's not going to come past for quite a while to that actual degree, because it won't quite, look at the way it comes, it's going to be ages away. It's too far. You are going to get back to 15 degrees though, Uranus in Taurus. So you've got a little bit of breathing room here. Okay, you've got a bit of an out, but there's that sort of March, April 2023 coming in again later. You will pick up another sextile though, May 2023. Okay, I'll just point that one out. But you're going to have this Saturn there, you know, all this stuff. And you're going to have the exact Pluto, Jupiter. So I don't know, so I'd make the most, and there's that, you know, I wouldn't kind of bet the farm on, you've got Jupiter trine Pluto here. May 2023 is mixed because Jupiter trine Pluto is a really good trading transit, but don't know about that. Anyway, I haven't really got into 2020. I need to see the Twitter story until I can really with a good grain of salt. And this is a mega transit, and this will have shown its face. So you certainly, Pluto conjunct Jupiter, you wouldn't go Jupiter trine Pluto is strong. Pluto conjunct Jupiter is 10 times as strong, so you can't forecast that stuff yet. Okay, so I would, knowing that these eclipses might show up and show their hand, and the other one was pretty bearish last year, this August time frame before, you know, your Mercury retrogrades and all this sort of stuff start coming in, you know, you see what goes on and you sort of think what to do there, okay? because September we can start to see it's not always, it's just they can show up 1 month early to individual assets. On the markets generally we tend to see them at the time, unless something is hitting by degree, and a lot is hitting by degree on these charts. So you just want to try and find a bit of, again, no astrology is better than some astrology, and it will depend on what Jupiter in Taurus is going to is in Aries is going to do. Is it what's going on with, is it going to be kind of the bull? You are going to get later Venus in Taurus. That's going to be here in June. Okay, Venus in Taurus is quite, I always got it in my notes from many years ago, strong like bull. Venus rules currencies, Taurus is the crypto. You may get a bit of June positivity here as well with Venus in Taurus. Venus conjunct Uranus, look at that. Uranus rules crypto, Venus, Uranus. Venus, Uranus is a big market signature. The conjunction does move markets. So the 12th of June here, you are in the end of that retro shadow. This won't be sort of related to markets. So you're coming into the end, you know, it depends what Bitcoin decides to do, but you also could have some quite, I've got to get to 16 degrees. Sorry, here, 11th of June. You may miss that sort of second shadow. You also haven't got Jupiter going retrograde yet. Interestingly, a bit the same degree of that eclipse later in the year. So watch out for the news, because it could be the eclipses related. You know, it's not a eclipse signature, but so you know, you may see, I do think that NMA is pretty good, and you may get this little sort of, you know, bit here, but you know, Venus conjunct Uranus markets generally anyway. So if Bitcoin's moving with the market, that's a really big kind of signature. Certain planets start to do certain things, you know. Uranus is going to, you know, it's already in what we call the shadow, and then you're going to get that Uranus station to go retrograde, and that's a really important. You also might see a change in trend, so keep an eye on what Bitcoin is doing. And it's actually not far after that Venus Uranus. It's going to come in here again. There's that August thing again, you know, before the second Mercury retrograde shadow starts. So that's another one of those weird double signatures. So 20, around that sort of 22nd, I think it is, of August. So I'm doing all this on the fly, so as well as I've done it a couple of times. You make a mistake, you've got to do it again. So 23rd of August 2022, and here comes that shadow. That's probably going to be quite poignant. And I want to point out that eclipse last year on the chart, that was also Uranus retrograde shadow. I seem to remember that big dip in when was it, like end of 2020 or something? Maybe it was here. I remember one of these big dips was Uranus shadow. You know, the shadow, it might, you know, it might work like the Mercury retrograde shadow. It doesn't like it. So, you know, you may see also along with the eclipses some volatility here. You won't know what's the eclipse. You won't know what's the Uranus shadow. You wouldn't know what the Jupiter station is. You wouldn't, you know, you wouldn't be able to pull this stuff apart. It's a matter of having really like 3 things that we know create a move, you know. It is impossible. So it's looking for these areas of confluence where we expect something. So, you know, we're certainly in this sort of hot spot at the moment, and we're also in between these eclipses and stuff like that. So really watch May, you know, so certainly there might be this sort of May, June, and then probably this August. And what I would do is probably just review this in August and see what's going. Look for the Twitter news, you'll know even more then. And I'm not saying the Twitter is the be all and end all. It just seems to be weird with all these degrees. It's using a slightly more esoteric kind of astrology. And then, you know, Uranus will even come in and then it's going to pull back. So you might even see, along with the Uranus retrograde and the shadow, even this sort of crypto narrative in some way kind of really start to come in around this sort of August, as it's pulling back off that point where it's gone halfway. Change in trend, whenever, you know, we look for a change in trend on equities, whether it be Neptune retrograde on oil or whatever. Well, so watch what Uranus, it's way bigger than the Mercury. Watch what's going on early August, the shadows, you know, if it's up into August, expect a change in trend here, just purely based on Uranus. But the Uranus station on all markets, anything that's got 18 degrees Taurus will pick up in a big way. And then you're going to have the eclipse not far off that later. So I really feel that there's this window here, I don't think it's Jupiter in Aries. Sorry, you might probably get a bit of Jupiter Aries, but I don't think that's what it is, and I don't think that's the transit you should be using to base a thing on, because we have had Jupiter in Aries as a bit of a reality check kind of thing, and there's just not enough data to know. So because these transits are a lot bigger and a lot more important. Now Pluto has backed off Jupiter. It's, you know, so you may, again, that sort of backing off, that sort of change of the narrative might even pull back of all this Elon Musk crypto payment stuff, because Pluto's backing off Jupiter here. Okay, I feel like it's almost like breathing room in a way, and the breathing room's good. It'll also help you make a bit of, I'm not saying, because, you know, eclipses can go for a couple of months, but I didn't see this one, you know, especially, look, this is also this Saturn at 25 Aquarius. Obviously in all my videos I said I was waiting for it to pull, 24, sorry, I was waiting for it to pull back here at this degree. Well, what's going to happen, it's going to pull off that degree, okay, that's going to pull off that degree, pretty soon. It's just this really point, and the eclipse hits it as well with that degree, you know, and it's certainly only like within days, and that's why I don't know if I expect this eclipse to go for a really long time, being we've seen the activation, the point that I showed it, we've got now this is moving, but it will go retrograde and come back over. Okay, now when Saturn will be a lot weaker because it's going backwards, you don't know the extent of the forceability of a planet on price going backwards. That's going to be coming late June, okay? But just to put it out there, it will be at this 24 degrees, which is a point where it's Jupiter's made highs. That's going to go until 16th of July, okay? So I do have to put caveat emptor, because I don't want to say one thing's going to happen. I've kind of got to put everything in that I'm showing, you know, so that would be the sort of, and then it's actually going to come back one more time. Now it's weak here, so it may not work. Sometimes a planet does nothing when it's retrograde, and sometimes it only does it the first time and not the second time, but that's going to come back actually in January as well, you know, so there's probably different time to be doing different things and then looking at different stuff all the way back then. Okay, so that's sort of where I think I can't give you a this is what's going to happen. All we can do with astrology, because there's nothing to look at the way I do astrology on the chart, so that Venus Uranus, Uranus retrograde, Mercury retrograde, the eclipse, this is the eclipse there, the eclipse second act, this one will actually come back again in 2023 to have its second act. So this is quite monumental in this period in here, Q3. We're going to see the Twitter news. It's really quite different, and we're going to see a lot of charts start to change. And you know, what is this 2 Scorpio about kind of thing, you know, and it even might relate to Bitcoin all the way back in this, you know, it's, you know, Epstein and Maxwell seem to have been quite interested. You got to watch that Scorpio. I don't know, it's all weird, you know, price clearly fell, you know, I'm not going to, I haven't talked about this, I'm going to say it once, I'm not going to say anything else. November last year was the Maxwell trial, okay, Bitcoin clearly fell as well. Now this is a bit weird, actually I hadn't thought about this, okay. When that eclipse showed up was the week of the Maxwell, oh my god, I've just worked it out. The week of the Maxwell trial was November, the really big plunge of the trial. Oh my god, that's so weird when you just kind of get this aha. Okay, that's your eclipse date it shows, and this is the trial, and look, Bitcoin is clearly dumped into this trial. There's something story, someone got worried about something, you can't deny it. It's never got back to this price actually again. So, oh, that's really weird. It's really weird actually. That was the eclipse back in December, and that was in Sagittarius. So, look, I don't think we'll see that eclipse. Oh yeah, that's the one that activated early, that's right. It's the one that activated in, this is the one that's in May now, back then. And this one at 6, this one actually came within weeks. This one was at, I should have just thought about that. This one was at 12 Sagittarius. You can imagine all these dates we've got to play with. It's a bit of a nightmare actually. So I think we're kind of okay with all that stuff, but if there is stuff connected to that, I actually might expect to see that. I don't know whether it itself because it's too much, people are really powerful and everything, but it could be this eclipse, and I don't know, it's just a bit weird, that dip. Doesn't matter, it's been gone, whatever, but it's really weird that that price fell from there. And if there's something shonky, it may come out in this sort of 2-degree Scorpio eclipse conjunct Venus. So there's a caveat, and that Pluto, Jupiter, even in the eclipse connect. This is not trading stuff. This is on the more esoteric. You know, Pluto, Jupiter is that's not to say it's necessarily positive. You know, I don't know. It's just we've got to be really open, and knowing that that eclipse last year is coming 3 times. So there's just a bit of a, you know, it's really messy and muggy and a lot going on, whereas we're coming into now, there's a bit of a break, a reprieve, a bit of breathing room. So I would kind of take the breathing room, listen to the story. These things just show you in advance. If you know the astrology is coming, you'll be able to pick up clues and trust your gut. Your gut is amazing. You've got to learn to be able to actually hone it really well, particularly for astrology, but also for the markets, you know. Got to make sure that you're not using Neptune. It's not here, it's really here. And forget all the sort of spiritual high ideals. Get really real, get some Saturn, dump any Neptune stuff. So, you know, there's a lot of, I think the astrology is going more story-based, as well as this sort of Uranus is really about to take over and really start. It's almost like the Uranus is going to take over the IPO. There isn't really any IPO. Watch the Jupiter Pluto here. It's going to come in with a 0.5 degree again, even in this sort of November. And you've got that Uranus Saturn square coming. You know, Jupiter square Pluto here. Oh, it comes in one more time. Sorry, I forgot. Here we go. This is coming in October 2022. Okay, watch what happens here, because it's coming into that window of mess where we're eyeing up our eclipse windows. Sorry if I move it closer here. I'm on a daily and I've got a weekly chart so you can see it better. So October 2022, a second Jupiter square Pluto is in here around those windows with the eclipses. So this could actually even get quite messy here, you know, so stay away from all of that. See what happens. It's coming any second anyway now. And this is finished. It's all over Red Rover if it comes up into here. So that's kind of my game plan of how it's not really easy to do it like the other stuff. But we kind of got to dump this chart the way that we would have used it before and start kind of looking at some other stuff, because I don't think this can help. You know what I do is I would make lots of money telling you that, oh, okay, yeah, this chart's fantastic, but I tell it like it is, you know, and it ain't, it's just not there. So look, that's just my thoughts on it. It's not to say any other astrologer, you know, I could not be right, but you know, I was looking for this transit, we got there, and it's all fallen apart after. For me, Jupiter's got nowhere else to go. Other people use other charts. I would just be very surprised if you can get something out of it. Look, you can progress the chart, absolutely, but are you going to progress a chart that you don't really know inside out well? Because we really only want to look at the sun, and I don't think the sun is, I don't know. So you have to be really, really careful on that sun. You can't really, again, do much of, you can certainly look at the outer planets aren't going to move that much, but yeah, it's just not what I would do. And look at this is really interesting. So the progressed chart, look at this Venus Uranus conjunction. This is super interesting. I hadn't even noticed that. It wouldn't matter what date you use. Wow, look at this. This is every time. 30th of April. What happened on the 30th of April here? This is really interesting. Let's go to daily. So we've got the Venus-Uranus progressed conjunction. Look, nothing's happened, but that could be kind of important on an astrology view. Interesting. It's also quite fallen into it. Often when these planets collide, and we've got that Venus-Uranus coming up later. I know you'd be like going, what does that mean? You sort of have to understand astrology, what that means, but that will separate, because once you get one number away, there you go. That's finished by June 2023. Look, Sun conjunct Jupiter. That's June 20. That's 2023 though. That's a while away. interesting, but I don't think we can use the sun here. At least these planets, we know they were at that degree. So, you know, that's probably worth a bit of a watch. Oh, sorry, that was 2023. That's a year ago. Okay. So, I would almost say, whatever story here, that actually might change to the whole Bitcoin story. I'm going to look at Uranus. So, July 2023. These two have separated. So it's like crypto, 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 crypto. Let's quickly just go into 1 year. I just want to see where your Uranus is at in July 2023. Okay, interesting. So Uranus is pulling along, but you're coming to this Jupiter-Uranus conjunction, okay? This is another thing to watch later. I'll do this in a separate video. It's coming closer together. I do think it could possibly be the end of the story here. It expands what it touches. It could be, again, the Twitter thing depends a lot on this transit. This is almost like the big one. Jupiter-Uranus conjunction in Taurus, or when in Aries, it was that reality check. But, you know, this does real crypto, and Jupiter expands what it touches. This could be a last hurrah of some sort. It's gonna retrograde. It's gonna go backwards. They won't come together until 2024. Look, Uranus was electric cars, you know, that sort of stuff. It could be, I don't know, blockchain. Look, I don't know. There's obviously a big thing coming in April 2024 with something to do with crypto in some way. And that's actually going to be when this Neptune's going to move into Aries, which is like, well, you know. So anyway, that's completely different astrology. But that's really interesting, you know. So don't know. It's sort of more, would we trade with that? Absolutely not. I'm trying to make this about trading. So I think this sort of June, July, August, and then I think it's just messy from there. And I just don't know if I'd use Jupiter in Aries. And it's going to go to Pisces anyway in around that time too. So there's another one, this Jupiter in and out. I think it's a bit of a confusing trader. Traders will be like, oh, 1 minute I feel really and then I feel really Pisces, and it's the most two, but it's like oil, fire and water together, you know. So I'd stay away from it. That's just me personally. Is it going to make a secondary high? Unlikely in that time. You know, I don't know the forecast. I can't tell you anything that's going on, but would I think it's coming in that last Q? It's up to not if this eclipse shows its hand again, no. I can't say it will, we don't know for sure, but there'd be an element of danger in making a forecast, I think. Just in case you can't show it, you can't see it on the screen, which I don't know. It's this period here, come on, sorry. See if I can draw a line here. No, it's just gonna keep lining. So it's 26th of September to the 27th of Feb, okay? So last Q, don't know about that one. With that sort of changing of energy and stuff like that. You do have that Saturn Uranus square. I'm going to tell you what, that's just a mess as it is. Here it comes here, and that Saturn Uranus square is coming in 21st of September. So I'd stay away from the whole. Look, it's just my thoughts on it. Might be just easier to stay away. You're going to have Jupiter opposite the Sun. I haven't done the astrology. Pluto square the Sun, October 2022. Pluto square Venus. Now, Venus rules currencies. It's probably important to talk about. I hadn't even done this, so excuse me, it's on the fly. Pluto, money, power, China, SEC, Fed. Now, don't forget, there's also this SEC, Fed kind of stuff going on. And a lot of people that don't want Elon Musk, I don't think it's that, but you know, Pluto square Venus might not be great either. 19th of October. What's around October? Certainly our November, our 2 Scorpio. Oh my goodness. October 25, the eclipse of 2 Scorpio, Pluto square Venus here. I don't like it. Uranus square Saturn. Jupiter square Mars, that's even like a financial combo too, and Saturn square the Sun. I'd stay well away from all of it. I might even just stay overnight. Isn't that funny? You're just doing this. you do have another Pluto sextile Jupiter coming, and that's going to come in a little bit later, but I don't like any of this last quarter. So, you know, I think this is just generally, let's vacate where the sun shines or whatever happens. Certainly assets with 2 degrees will do well. That's why I like trading. I do not trade indexes, or I do equities because they're going to jump to their own thing, you know. So that's my thoughts on it, of what's going on. And then look at that, there's that November again, even Jupiter going back into Aries, November, December. It's really late. It's a really late one, you know. So that's your Jupiter and Pisces as well, if you sort of subscribe to that. So messy, I guess. So good luck with it. Good luck on your financial astrology journey. Sorry I can't get more specific, but that's what it is, you know. So make hay while the sun shines, of maybe no astrology, I think. So good luck. Bye.